Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Thanks for joining me today for what would normally be a voting video, but since none of you, well, not none of you, but since most of you are not going to be aware of the movie or the famous quote, as well as myself, I won't be able to do a voting video on this one. But this is a very important video. So stick with me here because I'm going to be showing you one of the biggest movie quotes in history, probably, but in recent history, probably the last 40 years in Peru, the country where my wife comes from. So I've been hearing from a lot of people over the years that this is just a phenomenon based in the United States, which is totally not true. As some of you know, we've seen Mandela effects from England and from across Europe. I know that there have some in China. They're all around the world. This is a phenomenon that's happening all around the world. Reality is changing. This is just as mind-blowing as it was 3 years ago for me. And it's a part of my life now. And we just have to roll with the punches. I mean, it's so incredible that this is even happening, but it is. So anyway, let me get into this. As many of you know, my wife is not really on board with the Mandela effect. She seems to know something's going on, but it just doesn't really bother her. It doesn't faze her. So I thought this would give me some headway here, and I'd finally get to my wife, and she'd finally agree that, yeah, there's just really something crazy going on. So I asked her this famous quote from this 1985 movie. And she told me that it was "Que me mira, cadete," which means, what are you looking at, cadet? So let me play you this here. This here is a parody. So I'm going to start off with the parody. This is a parody, and this is the actor here, Gustavo Bueno. And this is more recent. The original movie I'll also show you, but let's start with the parody here.
Francisco, no. ¿Qué me mira, recluta? ¿Quiere que le regale una fotografía mía, cadeto? Sí, señor. No, señor.
Okay, so what he said was, "What are you looking at, recruit?" Now, in the original movie, it says, "What are you looking at, cadet?" But here in this parody, the original actor from the 1985 movie, La Ciudad y los Perros, the city and the dogs, he says, "What are you looking at, recruit? Do you want me to give you a naked photo of myself?" Okay, so that's the famous line. "Que me mira, cadete?" What are you looking at, cadet? ¿Quieres que le regale una fotografía mía, calato? Calato is naked. It comes from the Quechua, the native Inca language in Peru. So a lot of people who speak Spanish, they don't even know what calato means. It means desnuda, which means naked. So this is a famous, famous quote in my wife's country. So her mom is actually staying here, my mother-in-law. She asked her mom, "What's the famous line from this movie?" And her mom says, "Que me mira, cadete." What are you looking at, cadet? All right, so I have to tell you, my wife had some friends over from Peru, and I'll have to tell you what they said as well. So I'm going to show you this other one here. So let's go ahead and play this. This is like a variety show on the evening in Peru.
Atención. Cara, mira, cadete. ¿Quiere una fotografía mía, carato?
So he said exactly the line that many people from Peru remember. Que me mira, cadete. What are you looking at, cadet? The movie now says, "No me mire, cadete." Now, it doesn't sound that different from "que me mira." But there's a world of difference between "que me mira" and "no me mire." One is, what are you looking at? The other is, don't look at me. So it's a huge difference. So what the Peruvian people, many Peruvian people, I would imagine, remember, because I have examples here from, it's the same as we've been exploring in English in the United States. You have the memes where people put the memes with this, "Que me mira, cadete?" What are you looking at, cadet? the memes of the quote. It's in the variety show. It's on television. People remember it this way. In the movie now, it says, "Don't look at me, cadet. Do you want a naked photo of myself?" Just like we experience with Mandela effects in the United States, it's worse. It's a stupid line now. Don't look at me. Do you want a naked photograph of me? I mean, what are you looking at? You want a naked photograph? I mean, it's with the attitude. What are you looking at? It's more of a Peruvian attitude. I mean, it just makes more sense. What are you looking at? You want a naked photograph of me? But the way it is now, don't look at me. You want a naked photograph of me? It's lame. And that's what we're finding in this reality. A lot of things are lame here. Anyway. All right, so this says, "Que me mira, cadete," here. What are you looking at, cadet? Which is totally wrong. Here's the actual movie from 1985. It's based on a 1963 novel, The Time of the Hero, by Mario Vargas Llosa, Peruvian author. So in the book, you won't find this. But the person who wrote the script for the movie, they put it in. So here's the actor. This guy here is the same guy right here in this parody, Pataclown, which is a comedy show in Peru. So here he is in the original movie now. So we'll hear what he says in the original movie.
No me mire, cadete. ¿Quiere que le regale una fotografía mía, calato? No me mire, cadete. ¿Quiere que le regale una fotografía mía, calato?
So he now says, "No me mire, cadete." Don't look at me, cadet. When it was always, "What are you looking at?" So here's Casa de la Literatura Peruana. It's the House of Peruvian Literature. It says 10 fun facts about the city and the dogs, the 1985 movie. We go down to the 10th fun fact. What are you looking at, cadet? Do you want me to give you a naked photograph of myself? The famous quote that was pronounced by Lieutenant Gamboa in the film and based on the novel from Mario Vargas. So the famous quote, so here in this, it's all wrong. Que me mira, this is all totally wrong here. This is what we find going through this Mandela effect from Peru. And before I forget, my wife had some friends over that are from Peru. And I was telling her, I'm like, you got to ask him. Because I didn't really want to get into the Mandela effect. I just don't get into it with people now. Because it's just not something people are ready for. And in the beginning, it was, I was trying to talk to everybody about it. But I'm more reserved now. I just don't talk to people. But anyway, she says, what's the famous quote? And the guy, the husband, of her friend, he says, "Que me mira, cadete," and we play it on YouTube, and he says, well, it's been a long time. And then he says, maybe that's a remake of the movie, and the normal things you would expect someone to say, because they're not all automatically going to jump to the fact that, hey, wow, this must be a parallel universe. I mean, that comes after hundreds of changes for most of us. Well, maybe not. You don't need 100. I needed like 10 or 5 maybe, and I knew something was up. When my son asked me like 5, 6 questions, I got them all wrong. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? I looked into the Mandela effect, and boom, I was on the couch for 3 days. I mean, it's just insane. But most people are going to look for a logical explanation right off. They're not going to say, there's nothing weird going on here, Evan. It's just a remake of the movie, or it's been a long time. I must have heard it wrong. Whatever, So I didn't get into it with my wife's friends, but my wife and her mother and the 2 friends, they all remember Que me mira, cadete, as I would imagine most Peruvians remember. I have to ask more people. I have to ask my father-in-law when my wife calls him. So anyhow, the famous quote, la célebre frase, the famous quote, "Que me mira, cadete." So here's another, La República, that's talking about it. that was said in the movie here. I'm just showing you 3, but there's probably 10 or 15 examples where articles in Spanish, Peruvian articles, are talking about the quote that doesn't exist, that never was. So here you go. And the following is a list from some books, from Peruvian books, that were given the jump to the big screen. So here's books that made it to the big screen here. And if we go down, here's the movie, the 1985 movie, The City and the Dogs. Right here it says, directed by Francisco Lombardi. What are you looking at, cadet? You want me to give you a naked photograph of myself? Famous phrase that was said by Lieutenant Gamboa, Gustavo Bueno, the name of the guy, the actor, in the film. So it just goes on and on. This was never said in the film. This is classic Mandela effect from Peru. Huge Mandela effect. Example of the Mandela effect international. I mean, this is an international phenomenon. This is not just based in the United States. Now I was going to pair this up with a huge Mandela effect from Mexico. I think I'm going to leave that for the next video. Something that most all Mexicans know. It's a children's song. Even in Central America and South America, my wife knew it the old way, not the way it currently is. I asked some people at work, but that's about it. I'll get more into it in the next video that I do on that. So that's it, everyone. Classic example here of a Mandela effect from South America. It has all the telltale signs of the Mandela effect that I've been researching for 3 years. It's all here. And thankfully I speak Spanish, or this would have been a lot harder to investigate and research. But that's about it. I'll talk to everyone soon. Go create the reality that you want. I've been doing a lot of research into how we're actually creating our own reality. As hard as that is for some people to deal with, just think how hard it is for them to deal with the Mandela effect. I mean, reality changes, and you can change it to what you want it to be, as hard as that is for you to realize. Now, it's not exactly the way I want it, but I know it's not. It's okay. Let's put it like this. It's easier said than done, but we're doing it. I mean, it's not even something we have to try and do. We're doing it whether we know it or not. We're doing it. We just got to understand how we're doing it, and then we can turn it in the direction that we want. So this is what's happening. We're not just reacting to the outside world. The outside world is a reflection of our inside world. So we need to work on the inside. This is a process. It's going to take some time, but we're doing this together, everyone. I'll talk to everyone soon.